Well, hello. We're wrapping up our week on the topic of Jesus. We're talking through a book called Cornerstones 200 Questions and Answers to Teach Truth. We've been talking about Jesus this week and the last week that I did the videos. We're going to wrap up our 20 questions on Jesus. We've talked a lot about Jesus this week and referring back to his miracles, the fulfillment of the offices of prophet, priest, and king. Whether or not he deserved to die on the cross is something we dealt with yesterday. And so today we're going to ask the question, we know he died on the cross, so what happened afterwards? And so we're going to talk through that. We've got 3 questions, and we're going to be a little bit quicker today. So what happened on the third day? So we talk about Jesus dying on the cross. We know that he lived a perfect and sinless life, that he went to the cross, he was buried, according to the scriptures. But then just that amazing truth, he didn't stay in the grave. That's something we're going to talk about, because the question is, what happened on the third day after Jesus was crucified? So again, what happened on the third day after Jesus was crucified? So he died on the cross. There are some people who say, well, he didn't really die. He was mostly dead. He was almost dead. He was within an inch of his life. That's not true. He was dead. Proven by the fact that when they inserted the spear into his side, in between his ribs, that both water and blood had come out, and that is evidence of his death, as the plasma, the water, and the blood had separated, and so out from him flowed water and blood. That proved he was dead. There's no question about it. Jesus died on the cross. In his humanity, he died on the cross. And that's important for us to understand, because if he didn't pay the full penalty of sin, which is death, then his sacrifice wouldn't have been sufficient. So what happened next? He's dead. What happened? Well, on the third day, Jesus rose from the dead and left the grave. Now, this is what gives us our greatest sense of hope, because if it wasn't for the resurrection, we wouldn't know that Jesus has power for salvation. But in fact, Jesus is raised from the dead, and that means that God accepted his payment, that his sacrifice was sufficient. Jesus accepted it, and then Jesus rose from the dead. And so on the third day, Jesus rose from the dead. Is Jesus still dead? Absolutely not. He rose on the third day. How do we know? Well, that's where we get into the next question. So again, the first question for today is, what happened on the third day after Jesus was crucified? The answer: on the third day, Jesus rose from the dead and left the grave. Now, here's another question. Is there any evidence? We always want evidence. We always watch these shows where they're building a case and they need evidence. And if there's no body, it's hard to convict. Well, there's no body because the tomb is empty. So how can we convict? How do we know that he was actually dead? Well, we as I said, there's evidence that shows he was officially dead, and then he went into the grave. And then what happened? There were some pretty far-fetched theories. Maybe the disciples overtook the guards, convinced them to lie about it, let them steal the body, or left the area, and none of the guards ever changed their story. So whatever they bribed them with must have been good, or maybe they didn't bribe them. I think that's probably the truth. Jesus is alive. The disciples didn't go into the grave and steal his body. He rose from the dead and he walked out of the grave. So is there any evidence that shows Jesus rose from the dead? Yes. Here's the answer. Yes. Many witnesses saw Jesus after he rose from the dead. In fact, he rose from the dead. He appeared to 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. Then he appeared to the rest of the 12, then to over 500 other brothers, then to James, the rest of the apostles, and eventually to Paul himself. Paul tells us all of that. And so, yeah, there's plenty of evidence. There are many witnesses who saw Jesus. Over 500 people saw Jesus before he ascended. And so it's hard to get 500 people to come up with the exact same lie and never recant. It's not hard to get 500 people to say the same thing. We watch stuff that happens on Facebook where millions of people start saying the same thing, whether it's true or not. Well, 500 people saw Jesus. These were eyewitnesses, and they never changed their story. And that's important. So, yes, many witnesses saw Jesus after he rose from the dead. Last question for today. Where is Jesus now? So we asked, did he deserve to die yesterday? No, he didn't deserve to die. He did so willingly. He was sinless and blameless before God, so he didn't have to die, but he did so willingly. He went to the grave. Did he stay in the grave? No. We know that he woke up, that he came back to life. He rose from the dead, and he left the grave. There's plenty of evidence to show that he left the grave. Exhibit A, the empty grave. Exhibit B, the physical appearances of Jesus. And then the question ultimately is, where is Jesus now? If he's not dead, he's not in the grave, where is he? 40 days after Jesus rose, this is the answer. 40 days after Jesus rose, he ascended into heaven to return to his place of glory with the Father, where he will remain until he returns. You see, it's not just the resurrection that we have hope in. We have hope in his second bodily return, or his second coming. His return to this earth is going to happen. Just as sure as the resurrection happened, we can be assured of his return. He is going to return. He is coming back. This world is not our home. We watch the news, we see things that are happening, and it just gives us a healthy longing to be there. There's a song that was just released by John Foreman where he talks about longing for heaven on a place called earth. And earth is not our home. Heaven is. And that's where we will be. And someday Jesus is going to come back. And we long for that day when he will bring all of us into glory with him. So where is he now? 40 days after he rose, he ascended into heaven to return to his place of glory with the Father, where he will remain until his return. And we long for that return. Well, I hope you've enjoyed these questions and answers talking about Jesus this week and the last one that we did. Soon, we're going to start another set of questions. We've got 20 questions coming up, all on the topic of salvation. So we're going to talk about salvation coming up in our next set of videos that I'm get to spend time with you. So I look forward to that. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.